Welcome back to the Hyperdrive Minds podcast, episode 28. We've gone international. We have Ranasinha from France, right?
That's right. Yes, I am
Yeah.
from France. Though, as you can probably tell, I'm not French because I don't really sound very French, do I? But yes,
No.
I am from France. I've lived in France for about just over 20 years, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking on the map. It
Yeah.
looked like it was right on the border, France and Germany there.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Nice. Well, let's dive right in, man. Tell us,
Okay.
who are you?
Who am I? My name is Ranasinha, as you very nicely pronounced. Very good. I run a agency by the name of Kexino. We're a team of marketing, creative and business development specialists that work with startups and small businesses to help produce better, more relevant marketing. So what, you may say, our special sauce, our 11 herbs and spices, if you like, is that we combine strategy, branding and behavioral science to increase reputation, awareness, trust and, of course, sales. Because, sales is what it's all about, right? So we're 19 people in 9 countries. 9 of us are in the US. The rest are in Europe, South Africa. I have 1 person in Japan and I have 2 people in Australia. And probably 85% of our clients are in the US, even though we're based all over the place. Why that is, I do not know, to be honest. I'm not complaining. I'm very grateful for it. But I think there's this thing, I don't know if you've heard of it. There's this thing called the interwebs or something. And
Right.
apparently this stuff really works. And we get inquiries pretty much every day from startups and small businesses, medium-sized businesses too, looking for help realigning their marketing to ways which make a lot more sense today than perhaps they did yesterday.
Nice. Selfish question here. How many staffing companies do you work with?
Staffing companies, actually, we have such a low attrition rate. It's almost embarrassing, Blake, right? We've been going 17 years, okay? In those 17 years, we've lost 2 people.
That's insane. How many staffing companies do you do marketing services for?
We don't.
Oh, okay.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But, day isn't over yet, is it? So who knows?
Yeah. Maybe you'll win me over as a customer today or someone in my audience. But so we had a chat beforehand, and you've got some interesting opinions on how companies get marketing wrong, and you've seen marketing evolve from dial up to now AI. So what's the biggest change here in the last few years that's kind of surprised you?
I think it's a little bit worse than that. I think the biggest change that has surprised me is how people think marketing has changed. Because actually, marketing hasn't changed. I keep on reading pretty much on a daily basis, and I'm sure you do too. In any industry, people have to kill things. Oh, the way we've been doing it is dead. Marketing, the way we've been doing it is dead. Advertising is dead. Social is dead. Everything's dead. Right? Now, once you've been around the sun as many times as I have, Blake, you sort of realize that nothing ever really dies. Okay? What happens in the industry is it just gets a bit more fragmented. Do you remember back in the days of cassette tapes and vinyl, and they said vinyl was dead because they came out with this little silver disc called CD? And they said, yes, records are dead, vinyl's dead, CD's the way to go, right? Then a few years later, they said, oh no, CDs are dead, right? You're going to be downloading off on the iTunes store. It's downloads. CDs are dead. And a bit later, they said, oh no, downloads are dead. It's streaming. It's Spotify and Apple Music and Tidal and Cubuzz and all these other guys, right? Oh, no. Yes, downloads are dead. CDs are dead. Streaming's where it's at, right? But these things never died, did they? Right? If you look at sales today, okay, vinyl sells more than CDs do today, right?
I didn't know that.
So none of this stuff ever dies. All that's happened in our industry is it fragments. Nothing ever dies. Okay? I keep reading that, total BS by people who haven't got a clue what they're talking about when they say Marketing today has totally changed. And I totally and utterly reject that premise. Firstly, because these people don't know what marketing is and are confusing it with promotion, which is different from marketing. It's part of marketing, certainly. All promotion is marketing, but not all marketing is promotion. And this is where they're getting things wrong. Okay?
Okay. Explain that. What's the difference?
Promotion is primarily it's tactical. It's things like social, blogs, brochures, videos, podcasts, ads, and that's a tactical area. Okay?
Okay.
Marketing involves things like customer research, involves things like quantitative and qualitative analysis, like segmentation, like targeting, like positioning, like branding, like messaging, like all of this, like pricing, like distribution, all of these other things which come under the remit of marketing. Even product development is marketing. But what we're doing is we're focusing on a tiny percentage of what marketing is. None of your promotion is going to work if you haven't done the strategy work up front, because you don't know who you're targeting, what they're going to be receptive to, the types of messages, the types of media, the types of channel. You're basically waving a wet finger in the air and hoping, right? Which doesn't seem to be a very professional or scientific way of actually getting people to buy whatever it is you're selling. Okay? Promotion is a tiny percentage of a tiny percentage of marketing. And not only do most people who call themselves marketers, I won't call them marketers because they're not worthy of the name. People who call themselves marketers think that's all marketing is, so that's all they do. But what's worse is the people who hired them also haven't got a frigging clue what marketing is. So they're hiring them for what they think marketing is. They've hired them for the 1/10 of the iceberg that's above the waterline. But the thing is, why should they know what marketing is? Because they're not marketers.
Right.
They don't need to know the strategy, the targeting, the positioning, the segmentation, all of this stuff that actual marketers do, because why would they know, right? I mean, I'm not a CPA, okay? I don't know what CPAs do. I see the result of what they do in terms of a P&L and a balance sheet and all the other really cool stuff that CPAs do, right? I don't know their methodology and their pivot tables and their fantastic, wonderful formulaic equations. I don't know. I don't need to know, right? They need to know because that's what I'm paying them to do.
Right.
All I see is the deliverable, but how they got to that, I don't know. That's the problem that's going on in marketing. We're missing out all of that 9/10 of the work that needs to be done before we get to the promotional side of things. Okay. And so because we're confusing marketing with promotion, which, like I said, is a tiny part of marketing, which marketing is actually concerned with as a primary business function. So because marketing hasn't changed much, and I would say it hasn't changed much because the psychological and emotional drivers that form the basic mental structures of how and why human beings buy things, that hasn't changed, right?
Right.
Now, what has changed, of course, are the tactics. Tactics, of course, they change. Tactics we're using today are completely different from what we were using 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 3 years ago. Sure.
How often is the
Ultimately,
recommendation that you give companies? How often do you say, yeah, you need to make more videos. You need to post more videos?
no, it's the wrong question. It's not about what I want. It's not about what you want. It's not about what the company wants. The only person who matters in this decision is the person who pays all our salaries.
Customer.
As a customer. Exactly. Right? So what we're supposed to be doing is creating content, information, entertainment, whatever it may be, that helps the prospect make an informed buying decision. Now, how we do that is up to them. What channel we use, it's not we should be doing Facebook ads, we should be doing Google ads, we should be doing TikTok ads, we should be doing whatever. No, it's hello, Mr. or Mrs. Customer. How do you work? Where do you expect us to be? What kind of stuff will help you get rid of the problem that you have today? How can we make your life easier? Where do you expect us to be? Where do you expect us not to be? Quite often, there are channels where we're expected to be by our target audience, but equally, there are channels where we are not welcome. And just because we can be there doesn't mean we should. If we bother to do that customer research, actually find out, to know what our ideal customer profile is. In marketing terms, we call them ICP, ideal customer profile, which is simply, the right profile of person who's in the best position and the best aptitude to buy whatever it is we're selling. Okay?
Right.
How do we structure that communication? How do we position it? How do you choose to articulate the value that we're talking about? Do we do it with images? Do we do it with sound? Do we do it with video? Do we do it with something else? Do we do it with still images? Do we do it with digital? Do we do it non-digital, right? There is plenty of marketing around which is not even digital, that people don't even think about because they think it's old-fashioned. Do you know the most highest converting messaging right at this moment today? Depending on the business, the product, the customer, there's various constraints here. The single biggest converting piece of content right now is direct mail.
Really? I feel like that just all goes
Printing a
into the
piece of
trash
paper
can.
out, sticking it in an envelope, putting a stamp on it, and giving it to the USPS gives you 20, sometimes 50 times better conversions than anything you can do digitally, including digital advertising.
I
Now,
am shocked
like I
to hear
said,
that.
I know you are. I know you are. Because the thing is, especially in the last few years, who talks about a direct mail? Who talks about USPS stuff? Nobody. It's not sexy anymore, is it? Right? It's,
Well, it just all goes in the trash because, like, even my kids joke, like, why are they sending us so much trash? If I could vote right now for companies to stop, like, just cutting trees down and sending me pieces of paper that I'm not gonna read or open, I would
okay.
vote yes. Like, let's stop this. But I guess it works because companies keep doing it.
Let me ask you a question. Okay. If I send you an email to your email address, okay, and you don't know who that person is, right? It somehow manages to do a mission impossible and dive through your spam filters to
Right.
arrive at your inbox. Okay. The subject heading is, I don't know, something stupid. Read this quickly with some emoji or some
Double your
nonsense, right?
clients in 30
Right.
days.
Okay. Or your money back, right? I would guess 50% of the time you wouldn't even click on the mail. You would bin it straight away. You would even opening it. The second 50%, you would click on it. You would look at it for maybe 8 seconds before binning it, right? Either way, you've paid no attention to it, okay? Now, I guarantee you, if I sent you what looked like a handwritten envelope addressed to Blake Williams in a handwritten typeface, the envelope was bright blue, and it was stamped, not franked, and it came through your letterbox, okay? 10 will get you 5 that you would open that letter. You would not throw it in the trash. You would open that letter, and
Okay,
you
I'll
would
give you
read
that.
that letter. And if the content of that letter, of that circular, of that piece of information, was presented and structured in a way that wasn't insulting, derogatory, you may even put that on your desk while you went off and did something else, and it may hang around for an hour or two, for a day or two. You may even come back to it every now and again, if it was done properly. There's a thing that we talk about in marketing, which is called costly signaling. It's actually something that is a term that we've borrowed from the animal kingdom, okay? So if you are into evolutionary psychology, you will know this term costly signaling because it refers to the animal kingdom, and it refers to certain animals and plants who demonstrate an over-affectation of expenditure out of proportion to the promise that they are offering. Let me give you an example. A peacock, right? You look at a male peacock, okay? It has this nice, huge, big peacock's tail, right? Very impressive if you've ever seen one in a zoo or whatever else. And it's there to attract a mate. And the bigger, the more luxurious the looking of this peacock's tail is to attract the mate. For the other 99% of the time, This peacock's tail is just a millstone around this poor peacock's neck. It just gets in the way. He can't run quickly. He can't catch stuff. It's just, right, it's an appendage. It's a curse, right?
Right.
But what is it there to do? It's there to show the female peacock. It's a sign of virility. It's a sign of strength. It's an ad. It's an ad, right? I'm putting my money where my mouth is. There's no way I would be a puny £99 weakling, right, if I didn't have this huge, big, impressive looking plumage, right? Mate with me, not the guy down the street. Okay? I'll give you another example. Flowers. A friend of mine called Rory Sutherland once said that a flower is nothing more than a weed with an advertising budget. I'd love to have said that, but that was for Rory. What does a flower do, right? It has these ornate petals and perfume, tendrils, all of this stuff going on there to attract bees to say, come and taste my nectar. My nectar's really good. The bee comes along, goes in there. Oh, yes, loads of nectar. And indirectly helps pollinate the plant, and, the circle of life continues, right? What in effect we're doing with costly signaling is we're saying, I am confident enough that what my offer is valuable to you, and I'm so confident that I'm actually going to spend money, effort, resources. And you see that. You take more notice of it, because we all know digital is free. Email is free.
Right.
So we take that into account. If I was trying to sell you a set of steak knives, right, and I put together some AI video crap and stuck it on Facebook and it appeared in your Facebook feed and it was special steak knives for $299, you'd look at that and say, well, that's an absolute pile of excrement, right?
Yeah. I don't need that.
It's probably, oh yeah, it's probably something that's going to fall apart. It's probably really crap materials, etc., right? But if you were driving to your office in the morning and there was a 48-sheet poster of Gordon Ramsay holding these steak knives saying, these steak knives are really awesome, really get them today, you would automatically have a totally different impression on the quality of those steak knives and the validity of the offer because of costly signaling. Because, hey, they must be good, right? It's Gordon Ramsay here on the poster. He's not going to
Right.
put his name to any old crap, okay? Just the fact that they've got a 48-sheet poster, that's not chump change here. That's serious money we're talking about.
Right.
Why do people spend $8 million on a Super Bowl ad?
Yeah.
Why do
To
they
be
do
there.
that?
Yeah. It's a status.
It's costly signaling. It's showing their audience, our audience, that we mean business, that we're not full of crap, that what we say is what we mean. And this is a side effect of doing something like direct mail, which doesn't exist in the digital world because all of us have, instead of trying to make digital better, we're doing it with AI now. Instead of trying to make things better, we've tried to make it cheaper, which is obviously not the same thing. As a consequence, we all know that the ad we're seeing is not specially tailored to us, right? It's just pushed out at scale, and they're playing, supermarket numbers. If I get enough eyeballs at this, then I know I've got a customer acquisition rate of this, and so my cost per 1,000 eyeballs is that. But I know that at the end of that equation, I'm going to get whatever nut of sales. But what they've forgotten is that 99% of people who've seen the ad and been bothered by it are now going to totally ignore you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. There's a guy, I'll have to pull him up on LinkedIn. I think his first name's Dale, but he's like a sales guy himself. But he also coaches other people, and he's like trying to get creative, sending direct mail, and it's not a letter. Most time, I think his primary way is to send prospects an empty box of Dunkin' Donuts with a note inside that says, hey, I was gonna like eat these with you, but I kept waiting for you to return my call. Here's a gift card,
Perfect.
though. I'd love to
Perfect.
have it,
I mean,
20-minute meeting
that's
with you.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
How
That's
can
pretty.
anybody ignore that? Tell me.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I need to try it.
A friend of mine was working with a client some years ago, once in New York City, and they were starting up a very exclusive gym. It's one of these ones which it costs you like $1,000 or something, and there's only a certain amount of people can join, and after that, you know, you don't come in. And what they were doing is they'd send over this big parcel, well wrapped. They would send it by courier, DHL or something, okay, to the top C-suite executives at bank, finance, and insurance institutions close to the gym, where the gym was, okay? And if you opened the box, there was one boxing glove in there. And it was, if you want the other one, come and take out a subscription.
Interesting. Yeah. That can get expensive though, but I guess you're right. That you got to pay to play. You got to, establish some sense of status and credibility there, and do something different. Costly signaling. Yeah, I have to remember that.
Costly signaling. Yes.
Yeah. So Kexino, I know you guys have worked with over 400 startups. Like, what are some of the most common mistakes? Do you have like a top 3 that they make in marketing?
I've probably got a top 100.
Okay.
we could easily do like 5 episodes.
Okay.
On the top mistakes that startups and small businesses make. So in no particular order, the first one that springs to mind is self-diagnosis. So what do I mean by self-diagnosis? What I mean is that a business owner, it's usually the founder, CEO type person, right? The person who founded the company is now running the company and thinks they know more about their product and service and company than anybody else on the planet, right? They will come and they'll say, I just need you to do X for us, right? Supposing it's a website, as an example. I need you to do us a new website. So my first question would be, well, what's wrong with your current site? Well, it's not generating any leads. And it's just not working for us. And I'll take a look at the site, and okay, now and again you do get some absolute horror stories, right? But usually it's decent enough website, right? We've got guardrails now of website design. It's very difficult to put up a sucky site nowadays,
right?
Especially when you've got these, these Squarespace, Wix type solutions that sort of, put the guardrails up and, keep you on the straight and narrow. So
yeah, give you nice templates to start with.
Design's a subjective thing, I get it, but it doesn't suck. It works on mobile, all the good stuff. And you'd look at the site and it's like, what was actually wrong with the site was not the design, not necessarily the hierarchy. What was wrong was the only thing that matters on any website, which is the copy, which is the text, because that's the only thing that gets somebody from a prospect to a suspect to a customer, right? That's the only thing that converts, copy. But of course, copywriting is hard because copywriting comes from positioning, which is hard. Positioning comes from segmentation, which is hard, which is targeting, which is hard, right? They don't want to do the hard stuff. And more than that, I think if you think of it from a strategic point of view, especially a small business, strategy is about as much about what you say no to as what you say yes to. If you say, we stand for this, okay, as from our organization, by inference, it means we don't stand for that, right? Because you can't be all things to all people. But especially smaller businesses and especially startups, they want to be all things to all people. They don't want to turn anything down. But you need to turn these things down because otherwise you won't attract your ideal customer profile. So the reason why your website's not working is not because you have a sucky website. It's because your copy doesn't convert. Your website's fine, right? But this is a symptom of self-diagnosis because it's not up to you to tell the marketing agency what your business needs. It's the marketing agency who needs to do that. Let me give you an example. Supposing I go to see my doctor and I've got a pain in my chest. Okay? So I quickly open my phone and look up chest pain on WebMD, which you should never, ever do. Never do that internet stuff, right? Because, you're just absolutely scared witless, right? You finally get an appointment, you go to see the doctor and you say, look, I've got a chest pain. I've got angina. I've probably got about 5 seconds to live. You need to give me some angina medication pretty damn quick. What's the doctor going to tell you, right? He's going to tell you, are you absolutely off your head, right?
Right.
The doctor's
Google
going to ask
doctor.
you he's going to ask you a bunch of questions, right? He's going to take a bunch of tests, probably do some blood work, right? Blood pressure, all of this sort of stuff, okay? And then at the end of the diagnosis, he will give you his opinion as to what's wrong and the treatment for the ailment. All you do is you tell him where it hurts, right? You don't tell him that you've got angina or cardiac heart disease or, anything, all of that other stuff, because that's his job. Now, at the end of these tests, he turns around and says, you know what? You don't need angina medication. Actually, the reason why you got a pain in your chest is because you had spicy food last night and you don't have angina, you've got gas, right? Right? My treatment recommendation is a pack of Tums. That's what
Yeah.
you need. Don't need
Stop eating
angina
Taco
medication.
Bell.
Right. Well, that's probably a good idea anyway, isn't it, really? But,
Right. Yeah.
moving on. But the point is, he's the expert. Now, you can ignore his advice. You can go and get a second opinion. That's your prerogative. Absolutely. But it's not up to you to tell him what he should be doing, because you haven't spent 6 years in medical school and then become a resident and then become an attending and then become a this and that and finally got to the point where, people will let you hold a scalpel, right? He's done the work. He's educated and experienced in his field. So trust the process. In the same way, if you go to your garage and you tell the mechanic, I need a new transmission, when all you need is actually an oil change, it's not up to you. You're not the mechanic. He is the mechanic. Right? It's up to him or her, I'm sorry, to come back and tell you what needs to be done. But again and again and again, people come to us because they've watched a 30-second video on YouTube and all of a sudden they've got a doctorate in marketing,
Right.
Great. Okay. So there's all of this, Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if you're familiar with the term.
I've heard it before.
It's
I
not,
can't remember what it is.
okay, it's not knowing your own ignorance.
Oh yeah, I have that for sure.
Somebody reads one article or watches one video and all of a sudden they're a internationally renowned expert on that subject. Oh
Right.
yeah, well,
Right.
how hard could it be, right? Quantum physics, really? How hard could it be? Come on, it's simple. Surely.
Yeah, I watched YouTube video and figured out. I guess, is
Exactly.
that why you think that marketing is in a crisis right now? Like, those are pretty strong words. I guess, what do you think is the root cause? It's just the abundance of information and disinformation, bad information on YouTube, everywhere
People,
else, and now AI.
people listening to the wrong people, hustling and taking people's hard-earned cash and delivering the square root of nothing.
Right. Yeah.
I have conversations with small business owners pretty much every week. Sometimes these people are in tears because they've been
Oh
taken
yeah.
advantage of, right?
Yeah.
They've been
I've
screwed
been
over.
snagged a couple times,
Right.
wasted some money on some software or something.
Lots of people have those horror stories, right? It's like when you're talking about cable providers or everybody's got like, oh, don't get me started on telcos, whatever. Everybody's got a story. Loads of people have had their fingers burnt and these things. And we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. And they come to me and they're saying, look, what can you do? I'm down to my last X amount of money. Bank managers knocking on my door. The red bills have come through the letterbox, and I'm the one who has to say, well, I'm sorry, but it's terminal. There is nothing that anybody can do. You're dead. You just don't know it yet. There is
Wow.
nothing to do, right? And I don't want to be that one to say that all the time, right? Which is the reason why I do things like this, because if I can just help just one person to question some of the BS that they're being told by these, I call them marketing bros, but they're not necessarily male. The guys who sort of crouch in front of Lambos and throw gang signs and show you their PayPal receipts.
Right.
The people I'm talking about. Yesterday they were jumping up and down about NFTs or Web3, and tomorrow they'll be jumping on about AI. They're just following wherever they think the smell of money is leading them. right? They don't care about marketing. They don't know anything about marketing. They think it's promotion. They think they just need to blast enough ads or, cranky messages at people, and they think people are going to buy stuff. But, that's really insulting to the majority of people who buy stuff, right? We're a lot more savvy, especially today when we have so much information. But there's so many small business owners who want to believe that it's just round the corner. They want to believe that they can get all this done for a couple of $100 or whatever. It doesn't matter how much, because whether you're wasting $100 or $1,000, you're wasting money. Right? If it doesn't bring you anything, it doesn't matter. You haven't, oh, but I've saved $900. No, you spent 1,000. Okay, you haven't saved anything. Okay. So this is why I think marketing is this crisis, because we don't know what we don't know. We're focusing purely on the logical and rational and pragmatic, and we're ignoring what works in marketing messaging, which is emotion and irrationality, because it's the emotion coupled with the pragmatism. We need both. That's what forms the memory structures in our brains, so that when we are in a position to buy, we think of you as opposed to thinking of somebody else. You look at your own example, okay? You think back to a memory that you had in your life, okay? I guarantee you that memory has a strong emotional component to it. Maybe happiness, maybe sadness, guilt, fear, anger, whatever. But it's underpinned by an emotion. What's happening today with the vast, not all, but the vast majority, 90%, 90+% of marketing today is just missing that emotional component. So it's instantly forgotten.
Right.
So, right?
Just noise.
You think, so it's just noise. It's just adding to the noise. Think of it as like SEO for your brain. What we want to do is create those structures so that when we're in the drinks aisle at the supermarket and we're going to reach for a cola drink, we're going to reach for the red can as opposed to the blue can, for example, right? That's all marketing can ever do. Coca-Cola is actually a pretty good example. How many times have you ever seen a Coca-Cola ad where they're talking about buy two, get
Anything
one
that has to
free,
do
or,
with Coke.
or 12 pack for the price of 10, or those sort of
Right.
transactional sales activity? They never do that stuff. They do, I like to teach the world to sing, holidays are coming, all of that memorable stuff to evoke those memories in our minds. That's all the stuff that what we call brand awareness stuff in marketing. That's what they do. Now, you need to have the other stuff as well. Buy one, get one free, free delivery, only available in blue, all of that. You need to have that as well. But first people need to know that they want it before they'll buy
Right.
it.
Yeah, that stuff is there. Like, you got to get them 90% there, and that last 10%, the deal, the rebate, the discount, that's
Exactly.
to get them to the 100%.
That's exactly what pushes them over the line. Exactly. But the hard work has been done days, weeks, months, even years before.
Right.
Right. The
Yeah, that's the
reason
hardest
why I
thing.
bought a can of Coke today is not because of the ad I saw yesterday. It's because of the ad I've seen every day for the last 20 years of my life.
Yeah, I think that's why, like, when I try to do serious videos or something on LinkedIn, trying to talk about the job search, and it's kind of like, it's heavy. It's a heavy topic, right? Why job
Right.
seekers fall into the resume black hole. But, then if I just do like a funny recruiter skit that's 10 seconds, just to give somebody a chuckle, I don't know if that's the right way to go. I'm like constantly experimenting, but I'd really, as opposed to the serious stuff, I'd rather be associated with, like, yeah, just go with Blake, because his last video made me laugh. All right, I'll give him a call.
Blake's a good guy. He's a trustworthy guy. He's the sort of guy you would have a beer with.
There you go. Yeah.
There you
That's what
go.
I'm after. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a constant experiment trying to get the marketing right. How do you go about even determining what your marketing budget should be?
Depends on your business plan, right? Depends on your business plan. What's your growth strategy? What's your customer acquisition costs? What's your net and gross margins? You can't answer that until the marketing question until you have those business questions done, right? I could turn around and say, Blake, I could increase your revenue in 6 months, right? But it's going to cost you $5 million. What are you going to tell me? You say, well, what kind of hell? Right? I'm going to do that for $5 million.
Yeah,
The
5
math's done
million.
that
That's
up.
not in the budget.
Right, done that up. It's the wrong question. The question is, these are my costs. These are my overheads, right? This is how much I can afford to reinvest back into the business,
Right.
right? These are my sales projections. This is my growth pattern, right? This is my forecast. Based upon that, as an accrual every month, that's what I have available. What type of program can you put together that will give me tangible, sustainable growth over the medium to long term based upon that number? Now you've got something sustainable. Now you've got something where you're not looking over your shoulder every month because you're knowing you're spending all of this money on marketing. Because you've got something predictable and sustainable. You know how much your bills are going to be. Then it's, like I said, it's up to the expert, it's up to the marketing agency to propose what that recipe looks like. And the recipe may change, and there may be some testing. In fact, there probably will be some testing because nobody hits the target straight coming out of the doors, right? So
Right. Yeah.
you've got to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your princess, right? It takes some time. But then once and that recipe is unique to you, to your business. It won't work taking somebody else's recipe, and you can't take your recipe and use it for somebody else because you'll have your own set of priorities, your own set of costs, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. All of that stuff is unique to your business. So the marketing agency should take that into account. We have to start from ground zero and build. There's no templates. There's no shortcuts.
Should a new marketing strategy work immediately, or is there always like a ramp up period? And how long do you typically look at the data before you're like, okay, we should pivot because this isn't the right thing?
Totally depends on the business. Sorry, unfortunately, a lot of marketing questions can be answered by saying it depends, right? I don't mean it to be like that, but it does. It depends on your business, your customer profile. I don't know what your sales cycle is, right? Typically, how long does it take somebody who's just come into at the top of your funnel before you actually get to the point of closing the deal? I remember having a conversation with a small business. This was a few years ago, and they were selling very large, complicated installations to very large enterprise customers, right? And their sales cycles were typically 6 to 9 months. And we proposed a solution, an engagement plan, and we laid out everything. And they said, okay, so when are we going to see results? What do you reckon? 2 or 3 months? And I said, well, you've already told me that your sales cycle is 6 months. So nothing's going to happen for 6 months, is it? Right?
Yeah.
There is inertia, right? What we do in marketing today, we start seeing the results tomorrow, next week, next month, whatever the particular sales cycle is already in place within the customer profile. It also depends on how much marketing you're doing today. If you've done nothing for 5 years and then all of a sudden we're making a lot of noise, your total addressable market, your TAM, as we call them in marketing, they've never heard of you, right? Who's this Blake guy? I've never heard of him, all of it, right? So no one's going to buy from you until they've heard of you, right? So we need to be around for a certain amount of time, doing the brand awareness stuff. I like to teach the world to sing, Coke, holidays are coming, all of that sort of stuff going on in the background, so that when we do ask for the sale, they're saying, oh, yeah, it's a Blake guy. Yeah. I know who this is. So the
Yeah.
barriers are
Yeah.
dropped, right?
It's a little different in staffing because you're not asking for somebody's credit card number, right? And the only thing that matters is new client acquisition. But to get that, you need leads. And then it comes down to your ability to convert the leads and then fill the job. And there's so many hurdles to get through because maybe you land the client and land the job order, but then discover, oh man, this business is doo doo. Like I just need to get it. I just need to run away because this is
No,
not
absolutely.
good business. So it makes it tough. But when it comes to marketing just for new lead generation, like you should be able to see an impact from that marketing pretty quickly, right?
I think it depends on how well or otherwise, you define your ideal customer profile, because they're leads and they're good leads, right? And the more we can describe our ideal customer profile with sufficient granularity, the better we can target the types of messaging to fit that target audience profile. So if you're swimming in the bottom where it's very price dependent, then your options to differentiation are quite challenging, and you're easily mistaken for others who are swimming in the same pond.
Right. Should you choose like a specific niche right away and only focus on that, turn away everything else? Or is it a better strategy to kind of cast a wide net at first and then see which customers you pick up based on what your marketing, who is it resonating with, and then specialize into that later?
I think that's more of a business question than a marketing question. I don't think there's a wrong answer there.
Okay.
I'm very much a fan of niches, okay? Because I think if you try to be all things to all people, you end up being nobody to nobody, right? You're
Right.
just vanilla. You're just, taupe. You're grey. You're in a sea of sameness. If you can differentiate yourself across a metric that your prospect sees value in, then I think you can make a real difference, a real noise, and create some kind of distinctiveness in your market. Now, what that metric of differentiation is, don't know, right? And it would come out of doing customer research and speaking with customers, looking at your industry, looking at your competitors, so that we can find something that we can act upon, right? If you're an insurance company, why would you pick a gecko to be your point of differentiation, right? But it works.
Yeah.
It's
Strangely
the same
enough, yeah,
thing.
it works.
That's the point. Everything else makes sense apart from the gecko thing, right? Hang on, we're talking about insurance. Okay?
Yeah, I
Or,
guess that just holds people's attention longer.
it does. It's a little bit ludicrous if you think about it, but over time, with, immunity to us, right? It's no longer like, well, what the hell is the gecko doing? I don't understand. It's taken as fact. Yeah, well, of course. It's the Geico guys. We know it's the Geico guys. We don't even need to see any more of the ad.
Right.
It's differentiated. It's distinctive, right? If I show you a red background with a yellow half circle and tell you this is an ad for a fast food joint, who are you going to say it is?
What's the pizza joint? Mellow
It's
mushroom.
actually interesting from a behavioral science point of view. Nearly every fast food joint uses yellow and red as part of their color scheme.
Interesting.
Very interesting. I don't quite know what that is. But the point is golden arches. Okay? These are what in marketing we call distinctive brand assets. Just seeing a yellow curve on a red background is enough for us to know which burger joint we're talking about.
Yeah, I haven't found that AI image generators can really help you with those marks, right? Those icons
No, because
that would tell
LLMs
your
are
brand story.
it's going on what already exists. Creativity. Yes, it can take things from various sources and mix them all up into a nice cocktail, but it doesn't have taste. It doesn't have judgment. The thing is about AI, which, AI is super powerful for certain things, and it should absolutely be used for certain things, right? That it can do a gazillion times better than you or I could do, right? But we are continually trying to get it to do stuff that it sucks at, and then complaining, well, AI is no good at this. And it's like, well, yeah, right? I could buy a vacuum cleaner and say, well, it's not very good underwater. Well, no, but that's what it's used for, right? It's really good for picking up dirt in the bedroom, in the living room, in the kitchen, yeah. So why don't we use it for stuff that is actually good for use, fit for purpose, rather than trying to say, why doesn't it work for this? I took my Ferrari down to Costco and I couldn't get half the shopping in it. What a crap car. No, it's because you shouldn't be taking a Ferrari to Costco. You should be taking your SUV to Costco.
Right.
It's not the right tool for the job. And we're doing this constantly, for sorting out data, right? cleaning databases, doing those researches, sorting out numbers, working on huge data sets to find trends and looking at commonalities to come up with plans and various plans and look at the pros and all of that sort of stuff. It's fantastic. It's jaw-droppingly awesome. Right? And we're complaining, oh, well, look at that image it created. That guy's got 6 fingers. Well, then don't make it do images. Let it do the good stuff and let people do the other stuff. Where's the problem there? I don't get it. What am I missing?
Yeah. Well, it's getting better. I don't know. We'll see. There's,
Well,
Kind
it's the
just
worst
did
it's ever
their
going to be, right?
right. Yeah, today. So worst it's ever going to be. I mean, I saw some video. I think the brand Kind like redid their logo, and I was looking. I
Yeah.
was like, the before and after. I was like, they just wasted a bunch of money. Like I don't even know what the point of that was. It doesn't even look like they did anything. It's like, so I don't understand that.
Changing
Why
logos
do you
is a
think they
very,
did that?
very dangerous thing. Probably for the likes,
Okay, just
probably
a
for the
publicity thing.
noise. Yeah. Changing logos is a very, very, it's extremely rare where a customer will say, you know what, I didn't buy your product because I didn't like your logo.
Right.
Doesn't happen, does it? Right? Okay. There are plenty of horror stories where people have done rebranding for total ego vanity reasons, and it's just exploded in their faces.
Oh wow.
Tropicana is a big case study
Okay, I hadn't
where they
heard of that.
changed their packaging. Gap, if you remember, when Gap changed their logo a few years, probably 10, 15 years ago now, there was such an outcry. And there wasn't a huge change, to be honest, but it ended up costing both of these companies tens of millions of dollars, not just because of to change the brand back, because of lost sales.
Wow.
Tropicana sales fell off a cliff when they changed the design of the package. Nobody knew what to look for anymore, right? You're in the supermarket, you know in your head what the Tropicana pack looks like, but you couldn't see it anymore. So you had to use your system to thinking. You had to think. You actually had to be conscious and look around, and you ended up buying a different brand of orange juice
Oh, dirty.
because you
Yeah, I
couldn't.
would hate to be
Yeah,
the one that led that initiative.
there you go.
But yeah, it's hard to figure out what the best move is going to be. So it's like a constant experiment. I keep seeing this term thrown around called zero click,
Yeah,
zero click marketing. I think it's for like content. Can you explain that?
more and more of the searches that we do in a browser don't result in us clicking to another website. Let me explain. Okay. Years ago, if you wanted to know what the weather forecast was, right? You used to go into Google, type in weather, and it would bring you up a bunch of weather sites, weather.com and, Weather Channel and whatever else. And you'd have to click on one of those websites to go to their website and then maybe put in your details, or maybe it would geolocate and it would fill it all in. Okay. That was the relationship that the websites had with Google, right? So the websites would play a game by optimizing SEO, and Google would reward them by giving them high rankings on their search results.
Right.
Then what happened some years ago now is that more and more of those simple questions that we're asking were answered by Google themselves on their own website.
Right. Yeah, just
So now,
populated like Gemini would populate the answer for you.
now you go to Google, you put in weather, and it'll give you the weather results straight in Google. You don't have to click anywhere. You don't have to go weather.com or anything else.
Right.
If you want to see
Okay.
the
That makes sense.
forecast, or you want to see something in another part of the country or something, then you would click. How much is $1.39 in Canadian? You used to have to go to a currency conversion site. Now you have that built into Google, or a calculator, or, there's 101 other little things. Okay.
So now the
Then
only way you can drive traffic to your site is either spend money on ads or just put out a lot of content with links to your site, pretty much.
even links are going away. SEO, as we know, is on its way out. I won't say
Really?
dead, because I've just been saying nothing is ever dead, right? It's going, the way that we know it is going away. Okay. And this is part of it is LLMs, sure, but it's also part of it is zero click, but it's also part of what the social media platforms are playing their part as well, because they don't want us to leave their platforms, right? So, for instance, if you're posting something on Insta, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, whomever, and if you include a link to your website,
Yeah, it gets demoted right away.
right, it doesn't spread as much, right? Not as many eyeballs are going to even see it. That's why people start putting links in the comments instead of putting it in the actual main body of the post, okay? Because they want to keep you on their platform for longer so that they can give inflated audience figures to their advertisers and charge them more money for advertising, right? So zero click is partly a reaction to Google and whoever not sending us to third-party websites, but it's also as a result of the way that we as consumers of content have changed our behaviors over recent months and years, to the point where we have something called dark social. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
Never heard of that.
Okay, nothing to do with Darth Vader.
Oh,
Dark
man.
social. No, I'm sorry. Dark social is the term given to content that we share which can't be attributable through conventional attribution software. So if I see a really interesting post on LinkedIn and I want to send it to you, what I do today, I'd
Oh, copy
click
the
on the three
URL and email it
dots.
or something.
I copy, yeah, right. And you'd email it. I wouldn't share it using the share button on LinkedIn. Now,
Right.
obviously from LinkedIn's perspective, when you open up that post, LinkedIn doesn't know where you found it. So LinkedIn thinks that you found it yourself because it's got nothing else to go on, right? So it classes it as being organic traffic, which again makes a total mockery of metrics. But it's worse than that, because even if you did share it with the share button on, and it's not just LinkedIn, okay? Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, they all do this to
Right.
a lesser or greater degree. If you look at the attribution data which is sent with the URL in the share button, most of it is cut off because they don't want you to know how it came, because they don't want those numbers to be anything lower than organic discovery, because that they can sell to advertisers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, dirty. Well, I mean, it's probably just, yeah, it's got to be hard to track. It's probably the only way they can track it, you know?
There were a couple of social media channels where you could actually get full attribution data in the link. They were actually honest and above board about it. But it was probably a social media channel that nobody uses, Blue Sky or something. I don't know.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
was just something that just wasn't very popular. But most of the big ones, they don't give you the attribution data. So we don't know. We're flying blind. But the thing is, this depends on the industry, of course, and the type of product. But that can be a significant proportion of your traffic is coming to you from ways which you have absolutely no idea of.
Yeah. Yeah. Social media, man. That's that love hate. Tinker with it. Try to tinker with it for an hour every day. And it's like when they think you've quit, right? When I feel like there's some algorithm that senses when if you've created a lot of content, but then you stop for like 3 or 4 days. Oh, they start showing it to a lot more people to bring you back in. And you're like, oh
Yeah.
man, dopamine, clicks, likes, comments. Okay, that's fuel for the fire. Let me keep going. I feel like there's some algorithm behind the scenes that does that to
Oh,
people, but
without a doubt.
that's
For
just a
sure.
theory. Well, hey, we'll pivot a little bit because I know we're coming up on time, I think, but I read that you're a jazz pianist.
Yeah, that's a little bit over the top. A a pianist is probably a much greater thing than it actually is. I like to bang out a tune on the piano when I need my brain to go off into different directions,
Oh,
when I
okay.
just need some downtime, when I need to, let's call it meditation, call it just, in the moment thinking, where I just need to have that as a release. And that's something I enjoy. I learned as a kid and then didn't touch the piano for like years, then suddenly discovered it after a long time. Obviously, when you're a kid, you end up playing stuff that you really hate for exams and that sort of stuff. And then I sort of discovered that you could actually get sheet music for stuff that I actually like to listen to as a music nut. So I try to play the stuff that I like to listen to with varying degrees of success, but nothing marvelous. Yeah, I love to do it.
So you're not playing at
So
the local concert hall or anything. You're tinkering.
not
Okay.
anytime soon. No, no, you can keep you don't have to. Tickets are not available yet. Don't worry.
You don't have a separate YouTube channel for G on the piano.
Definitely not. No, not now, and not anytime soon. It's just something. I mean, I'd love to spend more time, but it's you try to fit it in because it always ends up sucking more time than you think. You sit down and then you're trying to relearn something that you haven't touched for a month or two, and then all of a sudden, like 2 hours have gone by. It's like, oh, hang on, no, I need to go back to work, or
Yeah,
I need to
yeah.
go do something else. Need to run errands. Need to go to Costco in my SUV, not the Ferrari.
Right.
Not that I have a Ferrari. No, not
Yeah,
definitely not.
right. You're just being modest. You got two
Yeah, yeah,
Ferraris.
that's it. That's right. Yeah, him and hers. Yeah,
Yeah. I've got a guitar, an acoustic guitar, electric guitar, and a piano, but I tinker with it a little bit. It mostly collects dust. I need to do more because I think you're right. Like, if something is bothering you, that is kind of a good escape to reset your mind, kind of like going for a walk or something without any media, without your phone. But I feel like now that you said that, it probably is a good idea to go play music for a minute because there's nothing else you can be thinking about, right? Other than what you're
absolutely.
doing with your hands and the sounds. So it
Yeah,
really focuses your attention elsewhere. So maybe that's a good strategy.
it works for me. I mean, going for a walk works as well. I find that very, very cleansing. Okay, very meditative. Your mind wanders in all sorts of wonderful ways. Like I said, without a phone, without listening to anything. I find that great, but it goes in waves. I suddenly get the bug and I need to sort of sit at the piano for a while. And then I sort of go off it because I just get frustrated by my total ineptitude at being able to carry a tune with this damn thing. It's a
Yeah.
it's a love-hate relationship with any musical instrument, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. If I was good at it, that's what I would do.
I hear you.
Well,
Yeah.
what's the best piece of advice that you've received?
Probably from the person who I still regard as the best salesperson I've ever met in my life, who once said to me, "Better to ask for forgiveness and permission."
Okay. Yeah. Just do it then.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate.
Well, don't
Right.
overthink it. Yeah. Because it's very easy to sort of go in this if then all decision tree, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And
Paralysis by analysis. I hate that.
yeah,
That's the worst.
exactly.
What's one thing that you'd want the listeners to take away from the conversation?
Listen to the person who pays our salary more because we're not doing that enough.
The
We need to
customer.
listen to customers. We need to speak to customers on a regular basis because they will tell us all the things that we're doing right, all the things that we're doing wrong, what we need to say, where we need to say it. They will move heaven and earth for us because they want us to succeed. They are our biggest advocates and we don't treat them anywhere near as well as we should do, right? It's a privilege to have enthusiastic, devoted customers, and we should treat them as such because they will help us get to be a better version of ourselves. Use it a lot more. For some reason, we're just paranoid about speaking to customers. And I don't know what it is.
Yeah, you want to be transactional and just get the sale, but it's like, wait a minute, why don't you take a step back and get their opinion on some stuff?
But
Actually a
that's
good
not how
idea.
they bought. That's not how or why they bought. They didn't buy from a transactional, rational perspective. They chose us. We weren't their only choice.
Right.
Unless we're a commodity, in which case we've got other problems, much bigger problems than we can discuss here. But unless we've got a commodity, there is something that made them choose us as opposed to somebody else, right? So it's about that relationship and using that relationship, which needs to be two-way, of course. It's not like any good relationship, right? I always used to say, for our agency, we don't have clients, we have friends we do business with. And I really believe that. And I have conversations with clients for sometimes hours, and there's no point to the conversation. We're just chatting.
Right.
They start by, "Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you about X," and we'll discuss that business thing, and it will take like 5 minutes, and then 2 hours later we're still chatting about it.
That's awesome.
That's the way it should be, right?
Yeah.
Because I know that I could pick up the phone and ask them for anything as they could for me.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, normally I only get that with people that you know, that game of ping pong that just keeps going forever. I don't know what it's called, chemistry or whatever, but it doesn't happen with everybody, I feel like. But it can
No, of course
if you
not.
got the right approach to it.
I don't think it should, right? There are some people who you can be friends with, and there's some people who you'll never be friends with, right? It's just like you have colleagues and you have friends, right? And you have friends and you have close friends, real friends. I mean, like almost family level friends, friends that you do anything, walk over broken glass for, those sort of people, right? But you don't have to, you don't have to be friends with everyone. No, some of them can be transactional or at least purely professional, and that's fine as well. It's different for everyone. But every now and again, you find someone and you click with them and you have a good laugh. That's part of the engagement, is to have some fun with it. We'll work on a marketing project and we're working very closely with that person for weeks, if not months. So we kind of have a bit of fun along the way.
Right.
What's the
Yeah.
point of
Well,
it?
you got to understand a ton to get for your marketability analysis, right? The expensive signaling, how are you going to maximize that? You got to know a lot about the goals and what they're
Well,
capable of and
you got to
everything.
know your shit, right?
Yeah.
Like in anything, right? Otherwise, not only do you have imposter syndrome, it's a reality, right? If you can't deliver on the goods because you're no doubt good, get out of my way, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
there are 100 others behind you who have more competence and more experience, who can fill your shoes. So if you can't do what you're setting out to do, you shouldn't be in business.
Yeah. Well, hey, you've been in business now for
17 years at the agency. For a marketing agency, that's pretty Jurassic. Marketing agencies don't generally last that long, that length of time. And we still have, like, I think 2 clients who have been with us from the start, which is
wow.
also unheard of within the marketing industry.
It is.
People change jobs and a new person comes in and they've got
Right.
their own preferences. They've got their own marketing agency that they worked with at their previous, bring them in and those sorts of things. And that's happened. Of course it's happened. It
It
happens
does.
often, but that's part of it. But, there are people who've chosen to stay with us. And I don't take that for granted. I really don't.
Well, you guys reach out to G if you are looking to revamp your marketing strategy, take it to the next level, or just
Even
get a
if you just
second
want to,
opinion on what you
even
need to
if you
be
just want
doing.
to chat, if you just need advice, if you don't know where to go, right? Even if it ends up with not working together, that's fine. But if I can save you, if I can help you dodge a bullet away from those marketing bros, right? Those guys, right? Keep away from those guys. If I can do that, I will absolutely will. Right? It doesn't necessarily mean we have to work together. The
Where can
thing
people
is,
find you, G?
best way to get hold of me is on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. It's where I spend most of my time. Would you believe there's only one G Ranasinha on LinkedIn? Blake, can you believe that?
Wow. You've cornered the market there. You get the
I
SEO
have.
for that one. There's only 100 pages of Blake Williams's on LinkedIn, so I'm lost in a sea.
That's difficult. Well, you could change your name, Deepo. Change your name
Okay,
to like
yeah,
Squiggle, like Prince did all those years ago.
Balake.
There you go. I remember that skit. That was great.
Yeah, I love that skit. That's
That
my
was great.
Fortnite handle, Balake.
Oh, is it? No, you find me on LinkedIn or obviously Kexino.
Kexino.com. Well, you've been a great guest, G. I think I need to follow up with you afterwards here and chat about, just get your opinion on what I'm doing. But yeah, man, it's been a fun conversation. I really appreciate you coming on.
It's been wonderful. Thank you again for inviting me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Let's do it again a year from now.
Sounds good.
All right.